In today's lecture, we will discuss about plant movements and more precisely about the tropic movements. Tropic movements are the movements which are under the influence of any environmental stimuli. That environmental stimuli could be light, could be gravity, or any other external environmental factor which act with greater intensity from one direction than another. So these directions are mostly these movements are mostly directional, or these are towards or away uh, uh, from the stimulus. The direction of external stimuli does determines the direction of movement, and because of that direction, that movement could be positive or could be negative. Characteristics of tropic movements are as follows: that these are controlled by external stimuli, means external stimuli determine that the extent of movement. If the external stimuli are more vigorous, then movement could be more obvious, or if it's not that much vigorous, then movement could not be more obvious. Or asymmetrical, as I have discussed earlier, that it's directional movement, or it's move towards the stimulus or towards the source which is causing the movement. So that could be positive or negative movement. Positive if it is moving towards the stimuli which is causing movement, or it is if it is moving away from the stimuli, then it could be negative movement. So this type of tropic movements are named after the name of the inducing agent, means which agent is inducing movement. For example, if light is inducing a movement, then it is known as phototropism. So in today's lecture, we will also discuss about the types of tropic movements. First type is the phototropism, as the name indicate that in this type of tropic response, that stimulus is light. Light is basically influencing or causing the plant to move towards the source of light, or that the phototropism could be positive if it is moving towards the light, or it could be negative if it is moving away from the light, or it could be phototrophic. Diaphototropic are the movements that are basically at right angle to the incidence of rays of sun. If movement is at right angle to the incidence of rays, then this type of movement is known as diaphototropic. Or it is plagiotropic. Plagiotropic are the movements which are at any angle other than the right angle. If the movement is towards the light source, but it is making an angle other than right angle, then it is known as plagiotropic movement. Next tropic movement is the gravitropism, and in this case, the stimulus is gravity. The source which is influencing the movement in plants is the gravity, or that could be positive or negative, as I have discussed earlier in case of phototropism, that if it is moving towards the source of external stimuli, then it is positive, or if it's moving away from the source of stimuli, then it is negative. Diagraviotropic movements are the movements that has shown little or no response to the gravity. For example, rhizomes and stolones that grow at right angle to the gravity. So these are known as the diagraviotropic responses. Plagiotropic responses are those responses in which the growth of different organs is between right angle and vertical angle. Then this is known as plagiotropic response or movement. And orthogravitropic response or movements are when the direction of growth is vertical. For example, main shoots and roots that are growing vertical, then this type of movement is known as orthogravitropic response. In further tropic movements are known as the Thigmotropism. Thigmotropism is basically the tropic response in which movement is influenced under the response of touch. Means if there is any mechanical stimulus of touch, then there will be a movement. For example, touch me not a plant. If you touch that plant, then it in response to the touch, that plant will immediately close its leaves. So that type of response is known as thigmotropism. Hydrotropism, as the name indicates, that this type of tropic response is influenced with the stimulus of water. If there is any water, then that plant will move towards the water. That type of movement is known as the hydrotropism. Phototropism, that movement is influenced under the stimulus of darkness. For example, the movement of stomatals, that is influenced with the stimulus of darkness. Hygrotropism, as the name indicates, that this is a response towards the humidity. If there is any change in the humidity gradient, then there will be a movement within the plant. And last tropic movement is the chemotropism. That is basically the response to the chemical. If any chemical is present in the environment, or in the, it is acting as an external stimuli, then plant will also show any movement towards or away from the chemical. So this type of movement is also known as chemotropism. Thank you. This was the brief discussion about the tropic responses, tropic movements, or their types. Thank you.